Hello and welcome along to Kelly and Wrighty, but it's Jules and Wrighty today. Are you coming to terms yet that Arsenal are going to win the league 7 points clear?
I ain't saying anything, Jules, but we are going into 2023 on a high. We'll be talking about tomorrow's game between Arsenal and Newcastle. First versus third, Arteta versus Howe. Big game. Massive
game. We're also going to discuss Marcus Rashford. He overslept, Ten Hag stuck him on the bench, he then scored the winner. So, is this the return of manager power?
And there could be more misery for Antonio Conte. Liverpool will move above Tottenham if they beat Brentford tonight. Very interesting.
Yeah, it was also an emotional weekend as Premier League players and fans paid tribute to King Pele. Thousands will say a final goodbye to the Brazilian legend at the home of his former club, Santos, with his funeral taking place today.
The Premier League, Manchester City and Everton are deeply saddened by the passing.
Some really beautiful tributes across the weekend at all of the Premier League grounds. Steve Sidwell and Darren Lewis join us as well. It's Pele's funeral starts today, Wrighty, doesn't it? How will he be remembered to you?
As the greatest, he's the king. El Rey Pele, I remember I can actually remember the commentary because he's such an influence on my life. To see a black man loved and lauded, watched it in colour, my friend's house, and seeing everybody love him like they did. You know what I mean? I wanted to be a footballer, watching somebody who was so focal in my whole life in respect of wanting to play football. And seeing somebody that looks like you is seeing it, being it. And I don't think that people understand the enormity of what he done in respects of inspiration to footballers and black footballers. Honestly, I genuinely, when I heard, because we knew that it was happening and any moment now, and I genuinely, you just well up. I just started to cry because you can't thank him enough. I met him twice, and it's again, I just didn't know what to say. It was embarrassing, Jules. Didn't know what to say to him, but I was just pleased to know that I touched him and met him.
Yeah. You met him as well, didn't you?
Just a legend, isn't he? I mean, I think when you close your eyes and you picture that Brazilian jersey, that iconic yellow jersey, it automatically, the number 10 just automatically is on the back, and you think of the legends that's played since then, your Romario's, Ronaldo's, Jairzinho's, Neymar's. No one will ever come near to Pele and what he done. Obviously, only see images and videos of him escape to victory, what a film that was, with the overhead kick. But it was all Pele at one stage, whether that was the garden, in the street playing football or in the park.
The fact, Darren, that, you know, there are many of us that weren't even around when he was winning his first World Cup at the age of 17, and yet, even to this day, he's still used as the barometer for the greatest. That says it all, doesn't it, about the icon he is?
I'm always fascinated by the debate around the greatest because he won the World Cup as a boy, scored 6 goals in 4 games at the World Cup. He's exhausted by the end of it. You look at the footage, he collapses into the arms of his teammates. And one of the Sweden players in '58 says, one of the goals he scored was so good, I wanted to applaud. I mean, this was an outstanding individual talent, full stop. To have the consistency to win 3 World Cups is just off the scale. Actually, people talk about favourite moments. One of my favourite moments was a goal he didn't score. The miss against Uruguay, where the ball comes in from the left-hand side. The move starts on the halfway line. It comes in from the left. He runs past the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper doesn't know which way he's going. He runs back to get the ball, hits it diagonally across goal. Had it gone in, it would have been the goal of the century. It just misses. But it's even the move sums up the fact that he loved to have fun on the pitch. You know, you get people who want to win. I've got to win this. I've got to win that. I've got to be driven by this. Brand this, brand that. Pele just wanted to have fun, and that's why so many people love him and were inspired by him.
Yeah, what's so wonderful as well is that when everyone is remembering these moments, everyone's got a big smile on their face because that's the legacy that he leaves, isn't it, Wrighty? You haven't wiped the smile off your face all weekend either, have you? Arsenal into the new year, top of the league, 7 points clear. How are you feeling?
Feeling very, Jules, there's only 16 games, obviously, because normally it'd be 21 games up to now. But I was saying the other day, Jules, about just enjoying the moment. The players are very much, they're keyed in, they're dialed into what they're doing. It's going to be tough. You know, again, you know, Man City are probably the only team that could probably take a couple of injuries to key players and still go on to do it. Arsenal know, and Arsenal fans know, that this is a very special time because it feels good. But if there is a couple of injuries, then all of a sudden we're somewhere else. But at the moment, we're answering all the questions. And that's all you can do. You just take the next game, as cliched as that sounds, take the next game and don't get too carried away with everything, Jules. And that's, at the moment, I'm just enjoying that. I'm enjoying that aspect of it because it's very easy to start thinking of the guys on a like a...
He came in dancing, guys. He came in dancing. He's celebrating already.
It's so tough not to get carried away because when you look at it, Darren, you're looking at the teams and Sids, you look at it and you feel like all the other teams are having that kind of Leicester season vibe where they're not quite where they're meant to be. And Arsenal are kind of like taking advantage at the moment. So that's why I feel like I feel.
I mean, just off the back of that, I think a lot of people, when Jesus was injured, said, that's it, Arsenal were done. Let's not kid ourselves. That's what they said. And they'd been warning about it, and they said that's their worst nightmare because he's such a leader and he takes responsibility and brings other people into the play. You scored 7 goals now in 2 games, and the players that you needed to step up have stepped up. Saka scored in both games since the World Cup. Martinelli scored in both games since the World Cup. And most significantly, Nketiah has scored in both games since the World Cup. And everybody said, oh, could he really do it if Jesus isn't available? He's doing it.
Yes,
why not?
Yes,
And one of the players you haven't mentioned there is Martin Odegaard, who is having a remarkable season. How important has he been to everything Arsenal have been doing well?
Huge responsibility, wasn't there? The captain's armband being given to him. He's accepted that. I mean, the assist against Brighton was... There's not many players in the Premier League...
The ball that he passed to Martinelli, that one? Yeah, amazing.
There's not many players that can do that in the Premier League. He's the one who's playing at the top of his game. Along with the others as well, they're showing a side, a personality, a character that even if they go a goal down, they don't have a little wobble. They may have a little spell, but they come back. You look at the games earlier in the season, Liverpool, when Arsenal went ahead, they get pegged back twice. They still go in and win the game. Spurs get pegged back, they still go on and win the game. So there's an element where games this year they're winning, whereas last year they wouldn't have probably seen them out.
So can I ask you, sometimes I do go a bit rogue.
I love it. It goes rogue as you want.
I just wanted to ask the boys about his leadership because he's a very different captain to the captain he'd had. Why is his leadership so effective?
Because, like Mykhaylo said, he's not a vocal captain. He leads by example. And you know, going to Real Madrid at 15 and then not really settling anywhere. You know what I mean? Everybody's thinking that this guy's a phenom, he's going to be amazing, and still loans and not getting to where he needed to be, and then till Arsenal took him. I think Sociedad had him for a while. It was out of us and Sociedad, and I was thinking, we've got to get him back. We've got to get him back simply because when he came and they recognised the calibre of player that they had, how he fit into the squad and make him captain, you know, it's kind of given him that kind of authority in himself to say, yes, I'm here now. I've arrived there.
Because like you had John Terry and you had John Terry, you had Tony Adams. They're both very different types of captains.
Vocal, very
but again, it was a massive call and one that's worked out from Arteta to go. He must have had a thinking process of going, right, who can take this role on? You know, I could easily give it to a centre half, you know, the most common one. But if I give it to Odegaard, is that going to elevate him to really drive everyone around him? And it's worked out, and it's done wonders, because it reminds me of that environment, that culture that's at Arsenal, very much the England culture now, where everyone gets on, everyone's kind of the same age, there's a real good mix and a blend. And like I say, they're riding that wave at the moment, but there will be a wobbly patch, and that'll be the testing time.
That's the thing. He's leading by example, the way he's playing. I think he's easily the informed, creative player in the league at the moment. And like you rightly mentioned, you know, Eddie Nketiah was under a lot of pressure. You know, people are thinking, well, is he going to do it? They just signed a new deal the other day. Everybody's talking about how much he's supposedly getting, and it's not even, it's irrelevant what he's getting, because Mykhaylo knows that he could come in and do it, and that's why. After the game the other day, Mykhaylo gave him such a lovely, long hug because he's happy for him. He's happy that he's come in and he's done that. And there's still maybe a chance that Arsenal may try and sign somebody. But he knows that he's needed. He's come in and he's done it. Saka's done it. Partey, Ødegaard. Those are the ones. If Partey, Ødegaard and Saka stay fit, which is going to be very tough, then I think Arsenal got a very good chance of winning the league.
Do you think that with Eddie Nketiah, is he... Because like you look at a profile, and is he like the name? Is he the big superstar name that can really spearhead every season for Arsenal. I mean, he's only young and he's knocking on the door and he's scoring the goals and he deserves to start. But you've got the likes of United to Chelsea's. I'm sure Chelsea haven't got a striker, but he doesn't. Do you know what I mean? He's young to getting a chance, but is he the one to really be at the profile up top?
You've got to realise that now this moment what he's in now, where Arsenal's main striker's out. He's the guy they've signed. He's been there since he's 14. You know, he's a goal scorer at all the levels, under 21 level. Now we've seen him scoring cup. Now he's come on the stage and he's actually scoring. So this is his time to build that profile, to be that guy. Because then what people will see is that, well, when he came in, he was under pressure and he'd done it. Now people say, I want to take him as my main guy then. If Arsenal, because he's now proven that he can deal with that, Jules. He can deal with the fact that, I could go in and I can be the main man. His link-up play's been good. He sniffs around the box, which is what he does well, and he's scoring the goals.
What I like about him as well, though, is that when he was answering to those critics, he said, you know, I don't want to be what Jesus is. No. I'm my own person. I'm my own player. And he's gone and proved that in the couple of matches that he's started in for Arsenal already. Looking at the Brighton game from the weekend, Wrighty, it was seen as a potential banana skin because Brighton came into that match off the back of a really comfortable victory against Southampton on Boxing Day. And there were a couple of moments in the game where Brighton were getting momentum. At any point, were you worried?
Yeah, I was a little bit worried, but the way we started the game, again, we didn't panic. You know, we started the game how you wanted to. On the front foot, they made a mistake, we punished them, and then all of a sudden we're in control of the game. And then you score again. And then what you want to see from the team is a maturity where you're not taking liberties, you're playing the game how you're meant to play your game. And I thought they saw it out very well. Until the second half, you knew that Brighton were going to do something else. Yes, they had a couple of key players missing, McAllister's missing, Caseido's missing, your top players missing. But at the same time, they were a problem to go there, especially Arsenal going there, Jules, knowing that City have dropped points and Newcastle have dropped points. So what you wanted to see was a management of the game. And I think there was a couple of instances in the second half where they weren't as tight. And I think that we saw that they scored the goal and they had another chance where they scored. Then they had one disallowed just by off. And those are the things that Arsenal have to now look at, okay, we need to manage the game from here. You know, and those are the things that, like, can I close down quicker to make sure we stop that pass into our back line? Because then, unfortunately, William Saliba got the wrong side of his lane, he scored. But I wasn't worried too much because going into the game and the way they started, they were very comfortable. It's mainly now what I'd be more worried about is how they see it out, because you're going to have to see out games.
I think there's a really good parallel between Arsenal this season and last season in terms of, we talked at the start of the campaign about how they were winning games against teams they would slip up against or would have slipped up against last season. Now, if you look at last season, they had games in hand on the other teams in the hunt for the Champions League. And there were occasions where they couldn't win those games. The pressure got to them. But this time around, they've got opportunities to build where other teams behind them drop points. 4 of the top 8 drop points this weekend, and they keep taking their chances. They've only lost once all season. They've only drawn once all season. All of the other games have been win. It's that relentlessness and that ability to take advantage of the other team's mistakes that it could well prove decisive.
The big question now is, coming to January, the transfer window. You know, I'm sure they're looking at bringing players in that's going to fit the mould, fit what Mikel Arteta's building, especially within the dressing room, and someone's not going to come into the shop. But even as a player in that dressing room, you've got to be thinking, come on, let's see. Even if it's in your position, you've got to be thinking, come on, let's see what we've got.
I'm intrigued to know with that, though, when there's so much unity in a team already, 7 points clear at the top, everyone seems to be singing off the same hymn sheet. Can it sometimes ruffle a few feathers if a new player comes in?
No, Jules, because I think that with Arsenal, they want that. They want it simply because they know it's going to make the group better. Then they're going to progress. Because Arsenal were trying to finish in the top 4. That's what the mantra was this season. That's what they wanted to do. Finish in the top 4, get back in Champions League, and attract the kind of players that's going to take you to the next level, which is to win the Premier League. They're way ahead of schedule at the moment. But I can't go too excited simply because it's 16 games. But what you want, Jules, is for Arsenal to be buying a player that comes into the squad, that is going to make that team better. They need that because for them to continue to go on.
Right, is there a player out there that's like that now?
I think that
if someone said, look, you can have that player tomorrow, you'd say, yeah, we'll take him.
Yeah, let me see. Gakpo's gone.
A bit late for that one.
Gakpo's gone because you look at him and you think to yourself, yeah, but I think like Mudryk, if they can get him, I think that's the kind of signing that you can get in now. Obviously, there's still midfield players. You look at like the midfield players around, like obviously Tchouaméni, you know, that kind of player. You can't get him now. He's obviously 100 million at Real Madrid, but you know, just off the top of my head, no. But like Mudryk, a striker, that's what they'll need now. Yeah. And I think Arsenal will at some stage need to make sure that they can cover in the midfield and centre-half. And that's what them playing well, going to that level, will bring them. They'll bring them that kind of player that wants to come to a club like Arsenal with a great project and maybe kick on with good young players.
So it's a 7-point gap at the top of the table now, and the games are coming thick and fast. Tomorrow, Arsenal host Newcastle. This is another tough game. Another team who you could argue are overachieving this season. How do you think Arsenal will approach this one?
Like every other game they've gone, on the front foot, try and win the game in the first half. I think that is their kind of tactic at the moment. You see how many early goals that they're scoring and getting on the score sheet with. And I think it'll be a game where they don't lose. That'll be their focus. We get out, we come off the traps, we play on the front foot, but whatever happens in this game, we don't lose. That's the mentality I think that Arteta's really installing into it. Not just his back line, everyone in that whole starting 11, players that are on the bench are the ones that are going to be playing in later weeks. But it's a game that they don't want to lose.
Are Newcastle a team that Arsenal fans fear?
I think you have to fear them because I'm watching Leeds play them the other day and listening to Jesse Marsh's interview afterwards. They went there and they were fearing Newcastle. They played 5 at the back. They were just trying to stop Newcastle and they just wanted to get a point. I think that says a lot about Newcastle because they respect them. Because if you don't do something like that, then Newcastle will open you up. I feel that we've got enough offensively for Newcastle to be afraid and vice versa. Yeah. You know, they're playing very, very well. And if you go there with anything other than the attitude of going to try and beat them, then, you know, I'll go with Steve. You have to try and beat them, but the main thing is you don't lose the game. Yeah. That's what Arsenal have to do now because we're going to have to play top teams, City twice, obviously. And if they do win those, then obviously the points, it's down to 1 point. So you have to go into that City game thinking, well, if we draw that game, we have to be winning these games. That's the main thing.
It's a tough one because Newcastle have got the best defensive record in the Premier League. They've only conceded 11 goals so far this season. They've built on really good, solid foundations, even though none of the back line you would... maybe Botman it would get it into a top side, if you like. But they've put together that defence really well. Pope as well as the last line of defence. Arsenal got the second highest... They are the second highest scorers in the Premier League. So it's almost like the irresistible force against your immovable objects. Yeah. And so who's going to crack first? And I think...
0-0.
Well, in theory, yes. In theory, yes, because I think they've only conceded 4 times in the last 11 games. But of the 2 teams, Arsenal got the greater capability to score. Saka, Martinelli, Odegaard, Nketiah. All of those players, a party, if you like, who can arrive late, exactly. I think Newcastle have fewer players who can break the deadlock, even though they are defensively strong. And that's why I would take maybe Arsenal to win it with the single goal.
The game's at the Emirates.
Yes, it is.
I mean,
their home record
and again,
is
at the moment, it just seems like everyone loves playing there. The fans are really on song. They're really getting behind. I've worked a couple of times this season. You can sense such a difference in the atmosphere at home games at Arsenal this season, more than any other season before. And the players, they look like they're just, they're going out there and they're exuding all of that energy as well when they're taking it to players. So that's a huge factor for them this season.
How much better is it at the Emirates now than it was a year ago, Wrighty?
It's magnificent now, simply because mykhaylo, not only has he moved people out of the team, brought people into the team, but he knew that there was something missing between the fans and the players and the management. And you notice how quiet it's gone with the owners and everything. All the noise has stopped because now they've got the Ashburton army that's just behind the clock end there. And there's a load of young fans who are getting behind the team and they're constantly singing. And it's something that mykhaylo always, when you listen to his interviews, he's always mentioned how important the fans are. And he's included the fans and they feel that now. And like you listen to the players when they're talking. I remember when William Saliba, when he scored the own goal there, the fans just started to sing his name in unison. And it just rose, everybody rose, and bam, they ended up going and scoring at the other end. And it's kind of, it's so important now, Jules. That if we're not hearing it now, you're feeling like, oh, the fans are not involved, we need them to get involved. It's magnificent for Arsenal.
I think that documentary is the best thing Arsenal have done for the last probably 10, 15 years, because I think it gave fans an insight. And you're right to talk about the fans. They understand what the club are doing now because they got that insight into it. And all the big decisions that are being made, he's been vindicated. You know, taking the captaincy away, moving out some of the older players who maybe were resting on their laurels a little bit, maybe felt that they'd done it and that the club owed them rather than the other way around, bringing in younger, hungry players. All of those decisions have been vindicated. And when you look at the fact that the players that they've moved out haven't exactly gone on to set the world alight at other clubs, whereas the younger players that they've brought through have got the club to where they are, the fans understand it now. There's real context to what Arsenal are doing, and that's why there is that synergy, if you like, between the fans.
And it gave them even more belief, obviously, heading into the game at the weekend, that Manchester City dropped points, so they could extend that gap at the top to 7 points. And we saw that Erling Haaland was kind of ruffled a bit in their match, which certainly helped them not get all 3 points. Ben Godfrey made his first Premier League start for Everton since his injury at the start of the season, and they had a right battle out on the pitch, Wrighty. Did you like this?
It's great to see. It's great to, like, Ben, but yeah, you want to see it because, you know, obviously they're having a little bit of an argument there, and, you know, the fact is that he is somebody that he'll hurt you. You know, Ben Godfrey was up for it. Yeah. And that's what you've got to be. You've got to be up for it. You've got to be up for playing against that player and letting him know, if you're going to do your stuff, you're going to have to do it against me, and I'm ready for you. You know what I mean?
You don't want to fire him up too much, though, Steve, do you?
Well, I mean, it looks as though it's the first time feathers have been ruffled because he's so big. I mean, when I see him,
Would you dare?
Yeah, of course.
Ben Godfrey's very rough he's very rough and ready, isn't he?
But that was the game plan. Tarkowski, Godfrey, Cody. I think they all got into him.
Yeah.
He was lucky, maybe possibly not to get sent off in one of the.
Because he wound up. Did you see that challenge he went and done? You know, they was getting him wound up. So Everton done well in that respect, I thought. But like it was good to see. It was good to see.
Is that a lesson for other teams when they're going to play against Manchester City now?
Yes and no, because I think on the one hand, they will see that you can get stuck into him. But then Guardiola was saying at the weekend, he's nowhere near Haaland where he could be. And he will make Haaland even more robust. Not necessarily physically, but mentally as well. Don't bite on that. You know, find a way to hurt them so that they'll have to maybe find another tactic. And of course, it still bears mentioning that if you do stop Haaland, you still open up space for the likes of Foden and the likes of Silva and the others to pour into and score. So, yes, on the one hand, you can silence him, although, again, he's scored 21 goals so far this season, so I'm not really sure that's silencing him. And he's only 2 off last season's tally for the Golden Boot. But I certainly think that he, as a player, will look now to find ways to prevent defenders doing what they did to him at the weekend.
OK, we're going to take a short break now, but when we come back, we're going to be focusing on another Premier League goal scorer, this time Marcus Rashford, who was benched for the game for Manchester United at the weekend, but came off and scored the winner. More on him next. We've all been there, haven't we? Oversleeping. A few of those yesterday, I imagine, on New Year's Day. Look, what a season Marcus Rashford is having. But it was a surprise, wasn't it, when we saw him on the bench for the game at Molineux. Everyone wondered what was going on. Then you heard there was a disciplinary issue. We've seen this before with Eric Ten Hag. He puts his foot down. Did you like the way he handled it?
Yeah, and I thought that they both handled it very well because I've not read too much or heard too much about Marcus Rashford being late or, you know, very, you know, all that kind of like disciplinary problems. He's never been somebody said that. So I was very surprised at that. But what I was pleased with is that I thought the punishment fit the crime. Yeah. You know, it's not something that he needed to be left out of the whole squad. He put him on the bench to make a point. And Marcus Rashford, a good professional that he is, he's answered. And he's come out and he said, listen, I overslept. And, you know, the manager's happy because he's got the response he wanted. And you're just hoping that doesn't happen again. But at the same time, it's just nice when it all ends up properly because the manager's is trying to instill discipline and culture and stuff. He's had all that problem with Ronaldo. And he's had to deal with that, and I thought he dealt with that pretty well. So I'm really pleased that this is something that's just done, finished, and they got on with it.
I was just thinking, you both played under Mourinho and George Graham, you know, that kind of discipline where no nonsense.
Absolutely. George Graham, honestly, I was petrified of him. So Tony Adams telling people that I was late all the time. It's like, you know,
I don't believe it for a second.
Absolutely ridiculous. Simply because George Graham, you know, if you're late, that's not happening.
Yeah.
You can't do that. So it was literally, I was petrified even when I got there. And then sometimes I get there so early, he was just the only one there, and you sit there like this.
I think that's what you need, though.
Yeah.
Go back to Arteta at Arsenal. That discipline, you need to do it as a coach, as a manager. There needs to be a boundary,
Absolutely.
and the players that have to fit inside that. And it doesn't matter who it is. I mean, that could have been one of the key players on Saturday. It was Marcus Rashford. You know, lucky enough, he needed it, didn't he? And then to come on after second half, and then when he scored the goals, he could have easily have sulked or been that, but there was so much passion there to say, you know, I've
he owned it, didn't he? He completely owned it.
I think that's quite a key point, because I think the whole thing was dealt with in a very grown-up way. I can think of a lot of clubs where the managers would have lied or maybe made it a bit more dramatic than it needed to be.
Yeah.
The journalists afterwards were always going to ask questions about a player who's already scored before this match, double the amount of goals he'd scored last season. He's been fantastic form, scored 3 times at the World Cup. He scored against Burnley the other day. So, you know, had he not started, everybody... Well, he didn't start, and the journalists were always going to ask the questions.
Yeah.
But there's a way of being able to handle it, and as we've been saying off camera, Ten Hag is perfect for United because he has a very straightforward manner and he doesn't beat about the bush if he wants to say something. But as you say, Rashford afterwards fessed up himself. And it was very... So it's done now. We can all move on, and he can continue having what is an outstanding season for him.
The positive for Manchester United as well is that they've needed a manager like this, someone who has a blueprint across the board, because we've seen that this is how Erik ten Hag has dealt with 3 completely different players in different stages of their career. In the summer, in pre-season with Garnacho, he handled him in a very similar fashion. Then Ronaldo, who is an absolute superstar, and now Marcus Rashford, and he's treated them all fairly similar in terms of the punishment for the crime that they've committed. So all positive signs for Manchester United, and it helps when Marcus Rashford is in the form he's in. And he's spoken quite honestly, hasn't he, this season about being in a better mental state this season. Can you feel that? Can you see that when he's out on the pitch?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely you can. And I think that you can see the focus. You know, people seem to forget that, you know, from a young player that burst into the scene with the pressure that you have to carry with you from a Man United academy, then you get into the first team, then you score goals, and then you're playing continually. You know what I mean? And then under the Solskjaer, then he got the injury, and he continued to play him. He wasn't rested. He's a young player. His form went, and then people were talking about, oh, he's got his mind. His mind's not on the game because he's doing what he's doing with the off the field stuff, which is absolute rubbish and lazy. You know, the fact is that we're talking about a young player that lost form in a time where his club's turbulence and everything was going wrong. He didn't have a rest till last summer. Last summer's the first rest he had. So now we're seeing a player who is ready to go, focused mind. He's probably still doing his stuff off the field. But the fact is that he's got a manager that's playing a style of football that suits him.
Yes.
Finally.
And look at the difference it's made.
Absolutely.
You can certainly see he's more fitter this year, and the confidence there. Wrighty, you'll know about the confidence, especially with a striker, because he's seen when you're on the front foot. The ball's landing to him at the right place. So whereas before, he was just a yard behind or 2, or the run just wasn't there. And as a player, when you're on that pitch, and you can see that in your striker. I've been there with strikers, and you're going,
it's just not happening.
He's just not at it. But
even that goal there, Sid, you see that goal, what we just saw? Even you see it just bounced up, you get the luck. Because you've got such your confidence, you're going for it. And so you're getting that luck, what you go for it. When you're going for it.
The balance of the rest and the work that he's done in the off-season, because I read an article that he went to the Nike headquarters in Oregon in the off-season to work on his sprinting and his fitness, the bungee cords, that coming back, being fresh. I think last season with the injuries and where he's so passionate and affiliation with United, he probably shouldn't have played in a few of them games where he was carrying the injury that he was doing. But he wanted to get out there and show his worth. So this year, all the boxes are being ticked. He's on fine form, and you can see he's every time he gets through on goal, he's going to at least minimum hit the target.
And I think he's symbolic of the handling of Man United's young players, because I think there are 1 or 2 other players who haven't been where they would want them to be. Sancho's one of them. And it isn't just the case that United are dropping these players and leaving them and maybe bring them back in a couple of months. They have specific programmes that these players are following. They've got a specific method of being able to re-establish the confidence that they had before they arrived at the club. And I think just like we're seeing a return to the form he had, and it was always, you're right, it was always a nonsense to suggest that Rashford was finished, he was never going to be the same player. He's a young boy learning the game, he's 24 years of age, and with the right confidence, with the right structure, with the right team, because he's had to recalibrate that team to get the players who do still have something to offer to be able to do that and get rid of some of the underachievers and some of the deadwood, just like at Manchester United. With all of those things coming together, you have conditions for the players to be able to do what they do best.
Yeah, five wins in a row in all competitions now for Manchester United, and that Marcus Rashford goal at Molineux on Saturday gave them the 3 points they needed in the Premier League to take them into the top 4 for the first time this season. The question is, can they stay there, Wrighty, with the squad they've got, or do they need a striker? Because Marcus Rashford has quite openly said he prefers playing on the left. Martial, if he gets injured, you'd assume Rashford would probably have to fill that hole down the centre. So do they need a striker, and who's out there?
Well, that's the thing. There's no one out there because that mudryk is going to Arsenal. No, but I think, Jules, you're right. They do need a striker because whatever happens, even if Martial doesn't get injured, because they do need to have somebody that's going to fire the goals in for them. As much as we say about Ronaldo, he did score the goals for United, and that's what they need. They need to find those goals. And Man United, a club of Man United stats, they have to be looking for another striker because now that they've got there, you do feel like the way that they're playing with the 5 wins, they do look like they're somewhere else now. It seems like it's getting through. It's no coincidence that Rashford, Fernandes, playing well. Eriksen playing well. Martial in the team doing his bit. There's players now who are all playing well because they understand what they're trying to do. And you look at Man United, they look a lot more structured and they look more stable in what they're doing.
Can I pick up on that? Because I think as far as the team are concerned, he's made tough decisions. Maguire not in the side, they're better for him not being in the side. They've got the protection of Casemiro and the leadership in midfield. That is so key. I think as far as the entire team is concerned, there's a basic work ethic this season that we haven't seen for a long, long time at Manchester United. And I think that is the basis for what they're doing right now, the consistency. I think they'll stay in the top 4 because they've got that discipline again and that they haven't had for, I would say, several years.
I think that,
Who's the biggest challengers for the 4th spot in the Premier League then, Steve, in your opinion? Because we saw Tottenham drop out at the weekend. Chelsea are having an off-season, just 1 win in 7 Premier League matches now. Who else? Liverpool, they're in the top 6.
I believe Newcastle have put themselves in a real good position to be top 4. So if we're looking at the moment, we're looking at Arsenal, Man City, either of them to win the league.
Just say Arsenal.
United to stay in. A nervy right. I think Newcastle have got a great chance because, like we said before, Chelsea's, Spurs, none of them are pulling up trees. It's a season now where your Arsenal can win the league, Newcastle can get in the top 4. I think Fulham is 7th at the moment as well. I know, so you're not even halfway through a season, but
you look at the way you're right. You look at the way Chelsea are. You look at Tottenham. You have to say with Newcastle, they're gonna have to go through a spell where they're gonna have to win certain games. Where like I'm saying with Arsenal, you have to go there and to stay in the top 4, you have to win them. Jules, like for instance, Newcastle, we come to Arsenal and they'll be thinking, we need to win that game. Yeah. Because you look at Man United, I feel like Man United are going to be amongst it, and I think that Liverpool can put a run together of winning games.
Yeah, of course.
You cannot, at this stage, write Liverpool off. So you're hoping that Newcastle can do it just for their sake. But at the same time, if Newcastle didn't do it, I'm not trying to dumb it down for them, and they can get themselves in Europe with the way that everything's transforming at Newcastle, that would be the kind of progression that they want, because all of a sudden they get Champions League football, then bam, they're going to have to really ramp everything up. And I think if they go Europa League, they can do like what City done when they bought Joleon Lescott and Gareth Barry and those kind of players to go to the next level, Jules. So as much as I'd love it to be Newcastle, I feel that Liverpool and Man United have got that experience where they'll probably put a run together towards the end, what might blast them in there.
Well, Liverpool play tonight against Brentford at Anfield. We're going to be previewing that game in the final part of the show. So let's just talk a bit about what's going wrong at Tottenham. Wrighty's just going to keep smiling through this bit, I think. But let's hear what Antonio Conte had to say after their defeat against Aston Villa yesterday.
We don't have many players that are really good in what we want, to be the man, to create the superiority. We don't have many creative players in our team, and we created chances through combination, through situation that we tried during the training session. For sure, you have to try to improve and to develop these players, especially young players, to become stronger.
Not a good weekend for Antonio Conte and his Tottenham side. Not only did they lose at home to Aston Villa, Arsenal top of the league, and Antonio Conte on another one of his little rants. We see this often with him. He's an emotional manager. We like to see it in a way, don't we? But is it helping things?
It's not helping, no, not at all. I think that you know, you've got Kane, Kulusevski, Son, Richarlison when they're playing. And when you look behind that, you have to say that, you know, they're not great players, they're average players that need, obviously, some kind of coaching or some kind of structure to what they're doing, because at the moment, they look all over the place. There's no creation for Harry Kane. I think, what did they have, 6 shots on target or something, maybe even 6 shots at home, you know, and it's not good enough. You look at the way that they're playing, I don't know what the style is. You got the manager, as soon as it gets to a situation like this, he seems to have the ump, he seems to be digging people out, and it just feels like, again, it's going to a place where, you know, you listen to the fans are not happy, my Tottenham mates, they're not happy, you know, so I don't know where they go from here with this manager.
It's been like this all season, though, in terms of the style of football, but because they were winning matches, they were sort of getting away with it. Now they've dropped out of the top 4. You're hearing it a little bit louder, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm shocked. When he went in there, I thought it was a great appointment. It was an appointment that Spurs needed. You know, look at when they were doing the pre-season, the training, the runs. You know, I thought this is going to be a well-oiled machine here. And it's just not. There's just something that right is now on their head there. The attacking prowess that they've got is phenomenal, but just behind that, it looks very average. And the demeanour, the personality that Conte's bringing out now, it wouldn't surprise me if he just says, do you know what, I'm going to go.
Both of them,
I'm going to go. It's just not working. But, I mean, on the weekend, the Villa game, Harry Kane, I think, had his first touch in the game, nearly 20 minutes into the game. I mean, at home against Villa, I mean, it's...
He has been missing a lot of players. There's been injuries in the team, obviously. Richarlison's been out. Kulusevski missed the game yesterday. Bentancur hasn't played since the World Cup as well. So, you know, he has had to deal with a few injuries in that side. Can that be an excuse? To
a certain extent, yeah. But I think in terms of the players that they do have, they do look very, very much under par. I think the confidence seems to have drained out of the Spurs side as well. I think the Spurs defence need leadership, and they haven't had that for a long time. The successive managers have played Eric Dyer at centre-half, but I just don't think he is a centre-half. I think that they need... I know he likes Conte, Alessandro Bastoni at Inter Milan. I think they'll try again to sign him. This is a pivotal window for Spurs, because if they don't go out and bring in quality in this, and I don't mean quality in a raft of new players, but if you look at, we were talking about this before, well, I was ranting at Steve. If you look at Liverpool, they were decisive in the market when they brought in Alisson and Van Dijk, because they needed leadership in goal, which cost them a Champions League, and they needed leadership at the back. And when they brought those two, they were transformative signings for the club. If you look at Arsenal, they were very decisive in bringing in Jesus and Zinchenko. They had Gabriel, they tried, you know, lots of different permutations, but they got the defensive shape and leadership that they needed to be able to build. I think as far as Spurs are concerned, they brought in players in various areas, but it's at the back where they've been crying out for leadership, organisation and fresh blood for a long, long time. They don't have the right wing-back they needed. Yes, they do have Romero. Lloris is a fine player, but he needs serious competition for that position.
I think on both sides there as well, the full-backs, Emerson Royal, you know, Sessegnon. I think you're absolutely right there, and I think that they need a very dominant centre-half, and they do need a left full-back and a right full-back. They need creativity in the midfield, because you can't have that kind of offensive player and you're not touching the ball for 20-odd minutes. it's crazy. It's ludicrous. So
if you look at somebody like a Tielemans is available now. And I don't want to sell the player, but clearly he's got 6 months left. He's not signed a new contract, so, you know, he's available.
Hopefully we get him.
Well, he would be a great acquisition for Arsenal.
No, you said
but my point is that if you look at somebody like him, business suggests that you would wait 6 months and get him for free.
Yeah.
But Tottenham can't afford to do that because of what we've just been saying. If Newcastle finish in the top 4, along with City, United and Arsenal, Spurs aren't getting in that top 4 for a number of years. Chelsea might not get into that top 4 for a number of years. All those clubs will only get stronger because they've got the finance, they've got the quality, they've got the youth in the case of Arsenal to stay there for a long time. So this has to be a crucial window. It could even, I would suggest, maybe even the future of Conte.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. If they don't make the top 4, do they lose Antonio Conte?
I think so.
I think that we spoke, didn't we? I think from a mutual point of view, I think he might just go, I don't know where this club, if you're not going to back me and give me the funds, I don't know how far or what you want me to do. My hands are quite tired. I could see him going in the season.
Yeah, I could see that, Jules, because you just look at the interview, his energy, his vibe, the players. You know, it doesn't look good at the moment.
OK, well, you think that Liverpool could put together a fight to finish in the top 4 this season. We're going to be focusing on Jurgen Klopp's side next because they're back in action. Another match week is around already and they face Brentford at Anfield tonight. The jury's out on this guy. We'll find out the thoughts of these guys on Darwin Núñez after the break. Welcome back. The football just keeps on coming, doesn't it? And Liverpool take on Brentford in a few hours' time, knowing that a win will move them above Spurs and into 5th spot, just a point behind Manchester United.
Brentford aren't doing too bad themselves. They'll go 7th with a win. What a job Thomas Frank is doing.
We have a massive belief in ourselves. The players are, fantastic group of players that have this, as I speak about all the time, attitude, confident but humble. Very confident that we get a result against any team, but also humble to know that we need to put so much hard work into it. No doubt about that. Liverpool is a fantastic team and a fantastic manager, the favorite in this game. But we know under the floodlights at the G-Tech, we'll come flying out and we'll do everything we can to get the 3 points.
We are very self-critical and we know that we can improve and we have to improve and that we have to sort things better on the pitch. That's absolutely clear. But that's exactly what we will try. And now it's really tough, but for Brentford as well, to have these 2 games in such a quick or short period of time. And that's the job to do now.
Yeah, look, it's going to be a tough game at Anfield tonight for Liverpool. They take on Brentford, but Liverpool come into the match in their best run of the season. 4 Premier League wins in a row. And look, let's talk about Darwin Núñez because he's the man that I think everyone is talking about when it comes to Liverpool right now. The jury seems to be out. Some fans have got a bit of a mixed opinion of him. Jurgen Klopp thinks he's an unstoppable force. Yeah. Where do you sit?
I'll go with Jurgen. I think he's an unstoppable force. I think that when you look at somebody who's come over from the league he's come from, it's not the same calibre of league. You know, he's come under for a big fee. You know what I mean? He's come to a big club. You know, he's got to settle in and everything. Then you've got the World Cup involved. There's so much going on in his head. And, you know, he's getting a lot of chances. I feel, Jules, that it's going to happen for him. I've got no doubt that it's going to happen for him. He's got a manager that's got total faith in him. Obviously, there's players that's got to come back that he's got to try and fight off to stay in the team. But when you look at the amount of chances he's getting in games, it will happen for him. I've got no problems with that with him.
Can you understand the frustration, though, from some of the fans watching him because he's missing so many chances since the return of Premier League football after the World Cup? He's played in 2 matches and had 13 shots and not scored. He's missed the most big chances in the league this season.
Well, if you look at Liverpool fans over the last few seasons, they've been spoilt with the amount of goals that they've seen home and away, the calibre of players, the strikes, the different types of goals. So they're used to seeing the ball hit the back of the net, especially at Anfield. I'm exactly the same with Wrighty. I think with the chances that he's getting so many. It looks as though he's trying too hard. Sometimes you look at the technique and you're thinking, I mean, I'm not even a striker, but as a midfield player, you're thinking just adjust your body and he's just snatching at a few. He's just not dropping. But they're all just I mean, I read an article that James Milner done about him, and he just was waxing lyrical in training. His enthusiasm, what he's bringing to the training ground and to the team, and he just said it's going to be a matter of time. No doubt, he's just got to adapt to the moment, to the league and new environments. But it will happen. OK,
so 2 former players, Darren, thinking it will come good. What's the writer's perspective from what we're seeing?
Well, the interesting thing about Núñez is that in the years gone by, when players would come to the Premier League for vast amounts of money and not score or miss the amount of chances he has done, they'd get a little bit of stick in the press. But I think things have changed in so much as journalists get an insight into the way that clubs operate. Talked about the documentary earlier. Liverpool very transparent with the way that they go about their business, and I think there's an understanding of all of the different elements that need to come together for a player who comes to this league to be able to perform in this league. And I think on top of all the things that, Wrighty, you were talking about, there's also language barrier, there's also cultural things as well. I think there are a number of things, and I think we've seen enough examples of former strikers who have struggled in this league, but have maybe gone elsewhere and been successful because they've had the patience to be able to do that, to be patient with Núñez. And I still do think that there's a vast amount of opinion suggesting he will come good.
Yeah, I think you look at if you want to pick a set of fans that's going to stick by you,
it's Liverpool.
It's going to be Liverpool. I think talk to Peter Crouch. I think he got score for 20-odd games, and then his first one was a bit of a deflection, the big loop over, but that set him on his role. But if you get, he says, if there's any set of fans that's going to get behind you and be with you the whole way, it's going to be the Liverpool fans.
And when you talk about the attacking options that Liverpool have got, they've just signed a new one, Cody Gakpo. He won't be available for the Brentford game tonight, but I think everyone's really excited to see him play in the Premier League now after what we saw him do at the World Cup as well, Wrighty. Is he the right type of player for Liverpool?
He's a top-quality player.
Don't be jealous.
No, can't hide the jealousy. Can't hide the jealousy. Am I hiding it well? The fact is that when you watched him and the way he blasted onto the scene in the World Cup and what he done, he looks so accomplished, everything he's doing, and you think to yourself, yeah, you could see him playing in the Premier League. Then you hear the rumours of Liverpool and you think, yeah, I could see that. You know, Liverpool are not going to let a player of that calibre go without trying to get them. And what I love about Liverpool is that when they do target somebody, they do get that player. So
just to wind Man United fans up a bit more as well.
It's just like the kind of player that Liverpool have to be signing, because we've seen what happened the way they started the season. They've kind of fallen off of it, trying to chase down City like they've been doing. So they need to make sure that they're getting the kind of players in that's going to take them back to where they should be, and that is challenging 1-on-2 in the league.
The question is, though, is when Jurgen Klopp has all of his attacking players fit, who on earth does he pick as that front three?
That's the dilemma, and that's what you get paid to make the big decisions. But if you keep standing still and not moving forward, then your Man City's, your United's now creeping up, and your Chelsea's, they'll start spending, they'll all start moving up ahead of you. But when they're all fit, it's a great dilemma to have. But you again, you look at it from a personal point of view of a player. You're going to Liverpool, one, because it's a absolute prestigious, massive club. They're winning trophies at the moment, but also they got the manager that you'd want to play under.
Absolutely.
I think you look at every one of them players, they'll want to play under him. Just one, because he's going to bring the best out of you, but also that personal relationship that he seemed to have with every single one of his players.
On top of that as well, I think if you look at last season, they played every game they could possibly play. So you need the squad.
You need it.
And I think if you not only have a squad, but you've got quality within that squad, that you can maybe perm any 3 players from the 6, 7, 8 that they have that can play up front, it makes it more difficult for an opposition team to prejudge
what you're going to do.
What you're going to do. And it gives them that variety up front to be able to worry teams.
Yeah, well, we're only a couple of hours away from kickoff now at Anfield, and a big boost for Brentford is that it looks as though Ivan Toney may actually be fit to start this match, which is remarkable, really. Only 3 days ago, he was stretchered off after scoring his 12th Premier League goal of the season at West Ham, and it looks like he might be fit for this game. That is a welcome return, isn't it?
It's a welcome return. Obviously, it wasn't as bad as we thought.
Yeah.
If he could do that after 3 days, they've got some unbelievable medical stuff going on at Brentford, but he's their talisman.
Yeah.
He's integral to what they do. They're an unbelievably hard-working side, very well organised, with a fantastic coach. It's going to be a tough game. Liverpool will know that's going to be a tough game for them, but I still have to fancy Liverpool. But like, it's going to be a tight one for them.
Yeah, it will. Let's just remind ourselves then of the matches that are coming up in this midweek round of games. We're only just into the new year and there's another round of fixtures coming up. So kicking off in a couple hours' time, Brentford against Liverpool, Arsenal take on Newcastle, Everton, Brighton, Leicester, Fulham and Manchester United against Bournemouth is tomorrow. On Wednesday, Saints take on Nottingham Forest, Southampton bottom of the table, Leeds face West Ham. West Ham under some real pressure now, 5 defeats in a row. And then we've got a Midlands derby, Villa taking on Wolves, Crystal Palace face Tottenham before the match week ends with Chelsea against Manchester City. We're just going to end with some lovely pictures of Alexis McAllister, World Cup winner with Argentina, returning to the Brighton training ground today. You know this reception very well, Steve Sidwell. Look at this return for Alexis.
Look at the medal. Look at the big gold medal there. Look, I bet he's got it on all the time. Listen, to have a World Cup winner come back into the training ground and have the reception of that, he deserves it because he was outstanding. He wasn't just a bit part, was he? He played a huge part. I feel sorry for the cleaners who's got to go and sweep that one up, but there we go. No, brilliant.
Absolutely lovely stuff, and good for Brighton fans to have Alexis McAllister back for that game tomorrow as well. And right, that's all we got time for. Darren, Steve, thank you very much for your company. Wrighty, good to be here with you.
One, Jules.
Hopefully I filled the Kelly Cates void nicely. Happy New Year to you all. Enjoy the football tonight and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.